more perfect poetry with Libby Haythorne, and this morning is going to be awesome because we are actually dealing with feelings in poetry and awesome abstract nouns. Sounds maybe a bit difficult, but it's not. It's so easy. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is remind you what a poem is. And look, here's a lovely one to hold up, just to show you. You don't even need to read the words, but to show you that it's sort of like a list. It's skinnier than prose. It has a new thought, a new line for every new thought. And what you can't see unless you read it is expresses poets' feelings and thoughts. Now, do you know a really famous poet said something that I just love about poetry? What he says is that it's the best possible words that you can come up with in the best possible order. Now, isn't that a great definition? The best possible words in the best possible order. And a poet I love who wrote The Ancient Mariner, Coleridge, he said those words, and I always quote them and I always remind myself of them. So, I'll read you, or I'll tell you two lines of poetry that I love from an Australian poet called Henry Lawson, and it's by channels of coolness. The echoes are calling, and down the dim gorges I hear the creek falling. And I love the way he uses that lovely, magical metaphor, channels of coolness, talking about a river or a creek. So poetry tells us about feelings and emotions, and poets want to share their feelings and emotions so that we, as the readers, share it, or it becomes like our thoughts and feelings too. And it's a really strong thing to do, to actually express your emotions or your feelings, funny, sad, filled with wonder. It can be anything, but capture it, best possible words, in the best possible order. And I did that. I wrote a poem that I call when I was feeling very strongly about things, and it's called Good Catalogue, Bad Catalogue, and I'm going to read it to you before we write our own. This was my good catalogue: food to eat, friends to meet, winter's bite, summer's light, night's tracery, foam's lacery. I made those two words up, tracery and lacery, and love, love's embracery. So there are three made-up words: tracery, lacery, and embracery. Bad catalogue: hunger's pain, drought, no rain, prisoners held, forests felled, bushfires burning, no returning, no returning. And I use the old trick that a poet uses in repeating, no returning, called repetition, and it's very strong. So now we're going to look at your good catalogue and bad catalogue first of all. What I want you to do is think about things that make you feel happy, safe, filled with joy even. And I've got a word wallet with some gorgeous words for that. Happy, healthy, sound, safe, reliable, trustworthy, noble, decent. I'll hold it up in a minute. And I've got a word wallet for bad, cruel, unhealthy, dangerous, harmful, wicked. So your good catalogue could have, and your bad one for that matter, could have things about food or people, or games and outings that you love, or favourite characters in book, or favourite characters in sport, people you know in the movies. So I want you to write 4 good things in your good catalogue. And remember, you can see all this in my teacher notes on my blog, so don't worry if you don't get it now. But I'm just going to hold it up because some of you may be waiting there with a pencil poised. So 4 good things. And I've written the first line of mine: riding my bike through the green of a park. I have to come up with 3 other things. Sorry, and I feel happy when I do this. 2 bad things in your bad catalogue, and I've put a lost kitten crying in the back lane. So here it is, and this is the structure for you to use. So come up really, really close and see if you can write down your very good catalogue, your good things, what you're eating, what you're doing, what game you're playing. And I feel happy when, I think that could be your last line. Now, I only asked for 2 things in the bad catalogue because I didn't want to focus on that for too long. But your last line would be, I feel sad when. Okay, I think that's going to be a really good poem. We bring those together and you've got your lovely good catalogue, bad catalogue of your very own. Okay, that's the first poem we're doing this session, but now we're going to move on to those awesome, awesome abstract nouns. Well, you might say, well, what are they? Do you know the very first words that we speak when we're a baby are ordinary common old nouns? For example, a baby might say bottle, milk, dummy, mama, doggy. Well, they're all common nouns, names of things, and that's pretty easy. So plain old nouns are like the chair, the computer, the desk, the glass, common nouns. And there's another kind of noun. Oh, by the way, you can put an A or a the in front of nouns, like a dog or the dog. There's another kind of noun called a proper noun, and all that means is we use a capital letter. Like, for example, if you write down Australia, a country, it's got capital A because it's a proper noun. So your name's a proper noun, your city, your street, all proper nouns. And I've written down Harriet of Pip Street, Orange, New South Wales, and all those have capital letters. So what's an abstract noun? Well, it's something we understand, like love or anger or jealousy, but we can't hear it, touch it, taste it, smell it, or see it in reality. That's all it is. Abstract nouns tell a lot about our feelings, like happiness, sadness, bitterness, sweetness, innocence, envy, greed, duty, mischief, wisdom. So that's what abstract nouns do. You can't sort of see them or touch them, but we can certainly talk about them and we can certainly write about them. Well, I thought I'd take you today to the best of the best. I'm going to take you right to William Shakespeare himself and what he said about jealousy. This was in his play Othello. Beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster. Isn't that a great image? Jealousy, the green-eyed monster. What he said about love. If music be the food of love, play on. So he was saying music's like a beautiful song about love itself. And then what he said about anger. My tongue will tell the anger in my heart. And so they're very, very strong expressions. So you could do little two-line things about anger, love, and jealousy. And then I wrote a book about generosity and friendship, and I'm going to read you the simple lines from this little picture book. I love it that we always like to share, break off a bit, even half, to show we care. You're my friend, happy you. You're my friend, joyful me. And that's what the book's called, Happy You, Joyful Me, that's just being written now. So you could write about generosity and friendship. Now we come to the highlight of this session, I think, which is about that William Blake, the poet that I told you about, I think, once before. Anyway, it's a poem written about 1827. It's a really long poem, but I've just taken 4 lines that I have remembered, and I hope you'll remember forever and ever. They're just so beautiful and so wise. At 10 years of age, this young boy actually saw a vision in a tree that he came home and told his mum he'd seen angels in a tree and he wanted to paint them and write about them. So even at 10, he knew he was a writer and a painter, and he ended up engraving things, and there's some of the most famous engravings in the world. And his poem that you're lucky enough to be going to hear 4 lines of it in 1 minute. And this is it. All right, let me prepare myself here to see the world in a grain of sand. To see the world in a grain of sand. And a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Well, infinity just means going on forever and ever, limitless, and eternity means till the end of time, limitless. So aren't they strong words? And once I used them to a little kindy class, honestly, kindergarten, and we went out and looked in a pond, and they wrote a little poem about infinity and eternity. So if they can do it, so can you. Now, I made a song, and a wonderful Australian composer called Elena Katz-Chernin has set it to music, and we hope it's going to be in a wonderful theatre music show we do for next year, based on my book Outside. So here's the poem again. To see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. My poem said, to see the world in a leaf so small, rough textured bark in a tree so tall, smell the world, pungent, strong, taste a future, good and long, infinity, eternity, infinity, eternity. Now my challenge to you is you can write a 4-line poem just like that, and that you use some artwork to inspire you, and you break off, you end it with that little refrain, infinity, eternity, infinity, eternity, which just means forever and ever. So let's look at some images, and you can go online and see any images you like. Look at city lights. To see the world in city lights is pretty amazing, or in a big city, that's pretty strong. Or to see the world in a computer, because this is the innards of a computer, and that takes us out to the world. So it might be that you look at a computer. To see the world in the cogs of machinery, because so much around us is filled with machinery. Look at this up close. These are cogs of a bicycle, in fact. To see the world in the wheel that really, really changed the world. And of course, we have our first one, William Blake's, that we saw the world in a wildflower and also in a grain of sand. Well, now it's your turn to see the world in what? You're going to do 4 or 5 lines, whatever you feel like, but I want you to think really deeply before you see. And by the way, I wanted you actually to memorize the poem. See if you can do that. Memorize those 4 lines. Close your eyes and say it while I search madly for our model for that. Hold on, where is it? No,
I think it's on the bottom here, just down there.
Oh, here we go. All right. Your own amazing poem. All right. To see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Infinity, eternity, infinity, eternity. So here's yours, your poem inspired, this is my poem, inspired by it. To see the world in a leaf so small, rough textured bark in a tree so tall. Smell the world, pungent, strong. Taste a future, good and long. Infinity, eternity, infinity, eternity. And now it's your turn. Now that's going to be a poem of a lifetime, because you're going to see the world in something amazing, and you're going to tell me about it and tell the world about it, just like William Blake did so long ago. And if you would need time to think about this one, because it's pretty deep and pretty marvellous, well then this is all on my website, on my blog, for you to go over my words that I'm speaking to you now, and to have your own go at writing the good and bad catalogue, and then the infinity, eternity poem. And you will have mastered awesome abstract nouns. Okay.